Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tech Talks from NASSCOM Insights. In today's session, we'll talk about how hybrid working is becoming a key component of future of work and what lies ahead. Before I introduce the other panelists for today, I would quickly introduce myself. I'm Neha Jain, Senior Manager with NASSCOM with over 15 years of experience in business research, financial research, and strategy across diverse industry segments. Currently at NASSCOM, I am leading future of work, talent, IT services, ESG, and patents. Moving forward, our next panelist for today is Anjali Raghuvanshi. Anjali is the Chief People Officer for Randstad India, an MBA from ICFI Business School, Hyderabad. She also has flair for finance, having earned an honors in finance from the reputed Banaras Hindu University. Anjali is a strategic business partner who facilitates, supports, and challenges business leaders, along with anticipating the much needed focus and change in workplace dynamics. Her experience ranges from industries like automotive, IT to consulting. Anjali is an expert in driving strategic resource optimization and rationalization initiatives through the organization. She has been instrumental in business continuity through developing a talent management framework which brings in all elements of talent together, including attracting, retaining, developing, and engaging talent. She's passionate about protecting the environment for future generations and an inclusive workplace. She also associates with campuses and B schools in shaping the young minds and building the talent for tomorrow. Welcome to the session, Anjali.
Thank you.
Moving ahead, our next panelist for today is Srinivasa Bharathy. He's the MD and CEO of Adrenalin eSystems Limited. Bharathy is a business leader with an entrepreneurial flair. He comes with varied experience ranging from business strategy consulting to enterprise software product management across industries. A fervent advocate of digital transformation, Bharathy and his core team has been working closely with HR leaders globally across industries to enable seamless adoption of HR tech within organization. With over 25 years of experience in global enterprise software industry and having bootstrapped and run a product engineering services company, as well as being the founding member of a SaaS ERP startup, his expertise lies in conceptualizing and helping build enterprise class software products. Bharti is deeply passionate about social issues. He has also co-founding Purnavali Foundation, an NGO that provides sustainable livelihood to disadvantaged women and marginal farmers. Welcome to the session, Bharti.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, who will also be the moderator for the session today, is Dr. Prashant Nair, who brings more than 25 years of global HR experience, having worked across different industries. He's a mechanical engineer and has done his doctorate from Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. He has worked with GEC Alstom and various companies of the RPG group, including KEC International, SEAT, and Zensar. He was head HR for Thomas Cook Asia and member of the Global HR Board London. Post that, he was the global HR head of Cipla. Prashant is part of Zing HR and focuses on the strategy, product development, in addition to mentoring the leadership team. He's also on the advisory board of NASSCOM community. At a personal side, he's interested in science, spirituality, and sports. Welcome to the session, Prashant.
Thank you. Thanks.
Going ahead, before I move on to the session, I would like to discuss the key findings of the report, Future of Work and its implication for India's tech industry, which was launched by NASSCOM and BCG last month. I hope my screen is visible to all.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
One of the key reasons we launched this report is that post the COVID pandemic, the tech sector seems to be on the cusp of another evolution, where it has been a leadership imperative to shape the future of work by leveraging hybrid workforce, that is work from anywhere, for virtual delivery models that optimize on-site and offshore mix. based on the survey that we did for our report, we have seen that employees are comfortable with a hybrid working model, with only 5% looking forward to working completely on site, 70% looking at a combination of remote and on site, and only 25%, a smaller share, looking at completely remote. Now, that being said, they continue to value the importance of being in office as they miss the informal social interaction, in-person collaboration and brainstorming, formal meetings, and the better work setup they get in office. On the buyer side, what we have seen is 70% of the tech services buyers are comfortable with hybrid model. This indicates that both employees and employers are looking forward to hybrid work model as things have changed for everyone post the pandemic. Now, what we see with these preferences, we see that the future of work driven by hybrid is helping to solve for traditional constraints, but it is also introducing new challenges that needs to be solved actively. There's a need to rethink how talent acquisition and management will happen. I mean, is the HR equipped to tap into new talent pools, considering, the challenges that we have? How would they drive talent management and retention in a distributed setup? There's a lot of complexity in terms of onboarding and integrating freshers. I mean, last year has seen a huge amount of fresher workforce that has joined us in the industry. But how are we onboarding them? How will they be integrated with the teams? That remains a challenge, considering a lot of people are working remote. What are the substitutes for frequent and informal touch points for peer learning? How will mentorship from seniors happen? There's a lot of complexity around building culture and employee engagement. What interventions now, needs to be think about to build a culture and employee work engagement in the hybrid working model? How does the leadership behavior, has to set up to get the right example in front of their teams? There are challenges with remote delivery on areas requiring lab infrastructure. People who need lab equipment, how would they operate remotely? Also, there has been a change in utilization of the office infrastructure, and there's a push towards opening satellite offices. So how would this look like in the future? How would the offices change? What is the kind of trade-off between real estate and in the tier 2 cities and higher overheads of multiple satellite offices? These are the questions that the companies needs to answer as they move towards hybrid. Also, there's a transition time from time-based qualification to output-based productivity measures. I mean, with all this hybrid working, will the employees remain productive in the long run is another question that comes to the leadership. How would they enable real-time, transparent data-backed productivity measures, because most of the people are not now in offices and are working from anywhere. So this is these are all the questions that the leadership is juggling with, because hybrid kind of has become a necessity. Now, leaders need to take this whole an intentional holistic approach across 4 dimensions in designing future of work. So the kind of questions that they need to answer is, how would they work in terms of how would they build up customer relationship? How would employee work models be organized, remanaged? How would the leadership really lead in a setup where they don't have their teams in front of them? How would an organizational culture be reinforced? How would the societal leadership be formed among the teams? Also, how would they organize the ways of working, the whole organization structure? How would they define the new roles? How would they manage access to talent? Lastly, what would they need? They would have to redesign the space designs, their offices, the locations they want to work on. Tools and technology needs will change as they move hybrid. How would learning and development happen? Because there is a continuous need for upskilling the workforce. How would that rejig, considering, again, most of the people will be working remotely for a lot of their time. Now, all of this boils down to emergence of 14 important themes, which when we are transitioning to, the future of work, the hybrid setup. Now, there are certain themes which are established. Now, themes which are related to new work models, are now widely accepted. When we talk about hybrid, has become last 2 years the way forward. People have got adapted to working. Team structures have been set. How the reporting will happen, how meetings will happen. So things have been kind of put in place over the last 2 years. Now, what is being experimented? So there are different elements that are currently tried and tested by organization, and they are working towards, shaping new models. So how the whole project work modeling will happen, how first line managers will manage, their teams, how will there be how would HR, all the teams, leaders will sustain an unstructured employee engagement. There is a need to, expand the access to talent pool, onboarding and training of new hires. People are looking at ways and means, and they're experimenting, learning, and putting it in practice. There is definitely a lot of redesigning that is happening, because now it's no more about restructuring of spaces by teams. It's more about restructuring the spaces by activities. Again, people are enabling their lab ecosystem in a different manner, where there are certain bits and pieces of work which can be done remotely, and maybe uh, people can go back to the report and see all the details. We have seen certain examples where if some companies were putting 10 or 12 tasks which were all done remotely. Now that number of tasks have reduced to say 2 or 4 tasks in the whole process, which now needs to be done in office. Rest of them can be done remotely. So a completely 100% office lab ecosystem to a portion of the process moving remote and rest being done in office. So what lies ahead? So there are certain elements which still needs more of thinking and require organization consideration. So strengthening the chain of culture, that's an important part, and I think organizations will have to dwell down deeper, think more as to how they can ingrain that culture, because you don't see people coming to offices. So there has to be ways and means which people are figuring out still, and we will see more of how things are being done as we move ahead on this, new ways of working, how innovation will happen. There has to be some equitable experience for both remote and on-site workers, because everybody has their own challenges. And since it's a need to have a distributed workforce setup, there has to be means to, get things at an equitable level. Gig workforce is a lot of gig workforce is coming into play. How would that be embedded in the whole organization structure? Also, and most important is how will we ensure the IT security? That's like an important, and I'm sure one factor which will keep evolving as we move forward. No, I think this is broadly how I sum up, what the report talks about and what it gets to you on the table. And I would request the audience today, for all more details, please download the report from NASSCOM community. It's a free report for everyone, and the link is there in the comment section. So please download the report. Now, with those insights from the report, I leave the floor open to Prashant to take the discussion forward. Over to you, Prashant.
Thank you, Neha. That was very brief, nicely summarized. The report throws up a lot of insights about the future of hybrid working. I like to take a step back and really ask, how did this hybrid working gain currency? And if I look back at it, there are three drivers to this. One is that emergency need that came in during the COVID times. The second is technology made it possible for aggregating and disaggregating and summing up work. Technology made it possible for people to interact online and get the work done. And the third is the social construct, which of the times that we are in, where individuals want their space and flexibility of the kind of work, and the way of working. These three things came together and actually helped the movement towards hybrid working, and the reason why it's accepted. And as the survey shows, about 75% of people on either side do want hybrid in some form or the other. So one of the questions that I have for the audience, and I'm going to talk about other questions as well. So one of the questions I have is, will it be sustainable? When this emergency need is not there, will this phenomena of hybrid working be sustainable? That's my first question. And moving on, when I look at it, there are organizations which are on the entire spectrum. Some of them want people to come to office, be on the field. And there are organizations which have defined that we be completely hybrid. But most of the organizations are somewhere in between, which is part hybrid, part flexibility of people. That's where most of the organizations are. So my second question is, from your experience, how does organizations define who gets the option of hybrid working? Are the people in the organization who do not get the option for hybrid? And how does the allocation of work take place in a fair way? So the first question is it sustainable beyond emergency need? The second question is, how do organizations decide who gets hybrid working and who does not get hybrid working, if at all? So how is the allocation and scheduling takes place? And moving on to my third point, the benefits are obvious. The biggest benefit, according to me, is the access to talent, access to people that we get in the hybrid mode. A lot of hidden talent in the organization, in the system, in the society that we can actually tap into using the hybrid mode. To me, the challenges are, one is, an organization is not a summation of projects. So projects can be managed beautifully in a hybrid mode. Can an organization be created on Zoom? How do you get the glue of the organization? Means if there's a project done by organization A, the same project is done by organization B, we do know that the results are different. How do you get that part? How do you build that part in a hybrid mode? And I think Neha alluded to the fact that, talking about culture, how does culture get created and how does culture get nurtured in an organization when you're working in a hybrid mode? The second aspect is, what are the legal and security challenges when you are in a hybrid mode? For example, someone gets injured at work. Workplace, it's easy to define, but when somebody gets injured at home, how do you manage that? These are very tactical issues. I'm just raising it so that we have the entire gamut of discussion. So I leave it at this. I'm basically raising three big questions. One is it sustainable beyond the emergency need? Number two, how does organizations allocate the time and choose who gets hybrid mode, how the hybrid modes actually works? And the third is, how do you build something like culture of an organization? How do employees bond in a hybrid mode of working? So these are my three questions. I'll request Anjali and then Srinivasa to share their views on some of these aspects.
Thanks, Prashant. I think probably I'll go first. And as you were speaking, I was also kind of, because we are all living this reality at this moment in all our organizations, right? And it's something which is a heated discussion, debate in any HR forum that you kind of get into. keeping in mind some of the aspects that you brought to the table, I mean, I look at it like from two perspectives. One, you have on one side employer, on the other side you have the employee. And because I'm also representing the talent market at this moment in this panel, given that we do have access to a vast candidate pool that kind of, today comes for jobs, and how are their reactions and how are their expectations shaping up as they come into the market for jobs. I think and that's where I kind of feel that this is something which is going to stay, and there is a reason, because I think the need of employees for flexibility was there even before pandemic. I think us as organizations woke up to the realities on during the pandemic because we didn't have an option. And what we realized is that most organizations, and I'm sure all of you have read, many spoke about how their productivity went up and they actually even had better results than before. So they also realize that it's possible to get the productivity and the business results you want. But what is becoming the bigger conversation now is that, okay, productivity is there, so you can't really tell an employee that you have to come to office because the business is moving. But then the challenge is that how do you create stickiness, belongingness in a world where everybody is talking about great resignation, and you are facing attrition no matter who you are and in which sector you are operating in. And then how do we as employers create that? And I'm looking at what is the expectation of the employer today. I mean, I need productivity, I need business results, I want good engagement, and I definitely want to control my attrition because I do want to manage my deliveries and outcomes. Well, what is it that as an employee I'm looking at? I think that conversation has evolved to a large extent. I think especially from a belongingness point of view, the content of the job is becoming a very big conversation among the employees today. And especially because you're working from home, when you're isolated from all other distractions of an office where you used to go for a coffee break or a water cooler moment, or there are people calling you, there are group discussions. Today you are sitting at your home and you ask your question when you're managing so many other priorities of your life, that what I'm doing, is it worth it? And that's why you see the conversations that employers are beginning to hear is that it's about work-life balance, or it's about for me, my life and my life's priorities also matter along with the job. Earlier the conversation was about, okay, how can I be in the rat race, how can I make or rise up the ladder as faster as I can, and how much more money can I make. I think the conversation around the meaningfulness of the job that you are doing is increasing over a period of time. And so it's going to become only more heightened, I would say, as we go forward, that what is it that I'm doing, and is it adding any value to me? How am I contributing? Am I learning enough while I'm on the job? Because now the whole onus of being relevant is also falling back on the employee, right? That how are you holding yourself relevant in the times to come? So I think and then comes the whole conversation, what an employee is looking at is experience, and which is experience is not just about the the job alone, but it's about, do I have the flexibility and the ability to pull back and pull in when I need? And then am I having technology that gives me a seamless experience in my work life today? Because people all the more want that, how can you make everything, like I come in, I don't have to do these click the buttons for attendance and do that. How can you make it so seamless that I logged in and my attendance is taken, and that I'm working on systems that adds to my productivity and not the other way around, right? So I think these I see as employees as coming up as conversation. Even if I look at Randstad's Future of Work report, it largely talks about that, and the population that's out there is asking for flexibility. Now I think the onus is on employers, that how do you bring the two together? Where is there a midway somewhere where you can actually make these two things matter, but meet? But I think the need, the talent has spoken, and it has spoken that they need flexibility. And we see that more and more candidate conversations are around, do I have work from home, or is it hybrid, or is it that I have to come every day to work? And they have opportunities, so they are making their choices out there. So I think that's what I'm seeing, and that's what the report says and the candidate market says. But as we are here to have further discussions, I look forward to other opinions and views as it comes in.
That's great, Anjali. But just, and you brought out a very important point, about the need for that individual space, individual life. That's becoming a very important parameter. You don't want to end the day you spend 3 hours, 1.5 hours on either side traveling in the traffic, means that's not the best of time utilization. But one point which I wanted to ask was that you mentioned about the interruptions and the distractions in work. But don't you think that's what makes work fun? Because work is not just about working, right? It's about meeting people, learning from others. In business schools, we always say that we learn more from our peers than from the books and other formal ways of learning. So work from an office environment, these distractions and interruptions are what actually creates the culture of the organization. Don't you think so?
Yes, so as I was saying, Prashant, I was saying that more in the context of the job content. That when you are in office, I think you did give a lot of priority to the kind of teams that you work with, who are the people you are hanging out with, etc. The more you are isolated at home, your job content becomes something more glaring at you, right? So you realize that what you are doing is probably not something that you enjoy doing, and probably it was the colleagues which you were enjoying more than the job actually that you are ending up doing. I think these revelations are coming to employees, and these reflections are happening. Of course, needless to say, I'm sure if you talk to people, they'll any day say that yes, once in a while I would love to go hang out with my colleagues and build a rapport and a relationship to collaborate better, right? Collaboration happens that way, and this is why hybrid to me is a better option, because it's not completely remote. You are not like completely isolated from the workspace. Of course, there are some situations where people have that need, having small baby at home or caregiving, because of the elderly parents. But having said that, I think people also value it. But what they're looking for from organizations is that, can I have the flexibility to choose what are the days, and can I have some flexibility even in a day? If I'm a morning person, can I do a lot of work in the morning? And if I'm a night person, can I little bit do more work during the night? So I think these are the conversations I see coming to the forefront as people are looking at flexibility emerging.
Fantastic, Anjali, thank you so much. Srinivas, over to you.
Yeah. So I think it's a very interesting topic, and I think we are all living this through our day-to-day lives and our management decisions that we are actually, kind of taking almost on a daily basis in the last couple of years. And it's very interesting to note how, as a HR tech provider, we actually see all ends of the spectrum. We see our customers from many industries with varying shades of requirement in terms of the needs they have, needs this pandemic actually put on to them. We are also seeing on the other side the candidate experience that is being gaining prominence today. Not only for the candidates we are looking out, but also the candidates that our customers are looking out for, and what experience they want us to build for them in our products. And so we are seeing that impact of that, I think, as a provider from many angles. Needless to say, I think the future of work in terms of the hybrid model is there to stay, at least for sure in the IT years sector. In what shared in what form, I think is very contextual to the organization. So what business am I in? For example, what we did when I encountered this and we had to take some decisions, was we said, okay, let's look at the context in from three angles. One is the core innovation angle. So which are the teams, which are the sets of employees or workforce who are needed to be working on the innovation side, where a lot of discussions need to happen, a lot of brainstorming needs to happen, a lot of collaboration needs to happen. Which are those functions which are customer centric, where it's driven by on-site work, customer driven requirements, and can be independently worked upon, or independently managed individuals, project managers, implementation people, delivery, on-site delivery guys, etc. And the third set we decided are the support functions. So we said, okay, support functions, can they actually work from anywhere? What really makes them come to office, etc. So if I look at these three buckets, then we said, okay, in people who would like to work in any of these three broad areas, the context of how their future could be. I could now recruit somebody, for any of the customer facing functions anywhere, from anywhere. In fact, we took our even somebody from Malaysia to work on an implementation, some of the implementations in India. So it doesn't matter now. However, in innovation, where we said we need more collaboration, we need more brainstorming and meetings, one of the interesting thoughts that came is, even if we work from home, can we all, can the product team, for example, meet on a business vacation somewhere for a few days, and instead of the office. So collaboration, brainstorming as a context possibly drove many people, in employees in the workforce, to say, even if I work from anywhere, once in a while I need to actually collaborate, brainstorm, understand each other's points of view, etc. And that, I think, is now gaining mainstream in that sense, right? So a mixture of these, I think, is is very, contextually have to be decided. But from what I by the way, I read the entire Randstad report this morning on my way to office, and this is the only day I've come to office this week. Okay. and and it's very interesting. I think one of the takeaways there, I think the distinction between how a Gen X candidate looks at it versus a Gen Z candidate looks at it, with with where they are in their lives, what kind of a family are they managing at this point in time, also matters in their choice of whether I want to work from home or not. While I think there I see a lot of confusion. Gen Z seems to be very clear. I prefer coming to office only if I'm asked to. Gen X seems to be a bit confused, saying, okay, are there going to be more household chores if I stay at home than the normal? Can I escape this or escape that? I think that's that's what I notice in that thing. And so I think it's very, we had a very interesting situation too, where there was a employee who she wanted to work from office, but her husband said, no, you have to work from home. And and this led to both of them quitting their jobs finally, and then we making them move to their native place, so that they could get some support system in place for both of them to work hybrid, from work from home model. So it's a interesting case. I tell our guys to see how such support systems that are required for the employees are also important when they decide on whether they go hybrid or not. The other area, I think, taking away from Anjali's points, is the three areas that I think we are seeing where there's a lot of I would say requirements or traction, is candidate experience. Like I was saying, the requirement of ensuring that the candidate sees the employer as a brand, because there is no touch and feel today. He or she is going through the entire recruitment process almost digitally, right? The second area we see is L&D, right? Learning and development. So how do I actually ensure learning management systems are in place as I onboard candidates? Are there AI-driven learning experiences possible that could actually look at the skill, the competency, the performance, the potential of a particular employee, and automatically start suggesting, curating topics and learning courses for those employees? The third we see is employee engagement. How do I engage these people when they are not really in front of me? And I can't do the typical physical engagement activities that we used to do earlier. And so a lot of customers ask us, are there other ways of providing better employee experience digitally, for workers who are spread geographically in many places? So I see these three as very distinct areas where a lot of requirements, a lot of traction from our customers in various sectors have come in the last last year or so, actually. So I'll now give it back to Prashant.
Prashant, you're on
Thank
mute.
you. Yeah. Thanks, Srinivasa, for very interesting points. And I was actually wondering, the way you split up core, customer, and support. That's a very interesting way to go about deciding who can avail of hybrid and how they can avail of hybrid. I think it's a good model for a lot of organizations. I was left wondering of one particular aspect. How does the social system support the hybrid working in terms of, we are a country at the end of it, majority of householders stay in a one room house, right? And it's also a fact that the number of members in a household in India is more than many countries in the world. Now, in that context, if both the husband and the wife starts working from home, how does it, how is the family life, what's the impact on the family life? And these are things that will come up at some point in time. So I was just wondering about that. Any thoughts on that, Srinivas?
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, like I said, one of the reasons I came to office today to ensure that I'll have this webinar uninterrupted was the same. Yeah, we are, you know, I
Yeah.
have my two children who are, one guy is just finishing college, the other guy is entering college. My wife is a chartered accountant; she works from home, and and all four of us in four different corners of the house, and who's going to answer the doorbell when everybody is busy is a big sticky point, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
so I escaped.
Yeah.
Basically.
In fact, mine is the reverse. My wife went to the hospital and my daughter did not have school. So I decided that if I stay at home, then I will have to end up doing a lot of jobs. So I told the maid, please take care. I'll come back around 6 o'clock.
So therein lies the answer, right? so, so I think that's the reason. One interesting thought that came to me as the trend that one of the one of my contacts, one of my acquaintances who is a real estate developer actually mentioned to me is something that I actually kind of stuck to me. After he was actually trying to build in a tier two, tier three town, and where post COVID he is now seeing the population of a lot of the natives from that town who have come back and doing work from home. And he was telling me, Srinivas, I think I'm going to change a couple of my projects that I've marked for residential projects, and I'm going to change that to, near to home work centers, where I can actually offer workspaces for the work from home employees who are working from my hometown, who are working for the larger IT companies, to come in and work where I would provide the infrastructure, blah blah blah. It's like a shared workspace, but it's a dedicated workspace. They can hire it for or buy it from me, and I'm actually going to build a couple of such infrastructures in my small town. So I said there's something now happening. There's something moving, right? So he's, by the way, this I think this year he has built that one place also in Pondicherry, I think. So the idea is near to home kind of workspaces. I think maybe a future that will drive this hybrid model, even for those organizations who don't establish an infrastructure in those towns. Some of the big companies would be able to establish those infrastructures, but I think for the others, the support industries would start helping this hybrid to become a sustainable reality, is what I think.
Very interesting. And, also the point that comes to my mind is that like we have KYC for the customers, in a hybrid mode, the KYE, that is know your employee, will become extremely important. We need to know each of the employees who are, who are in the hybrid mode, because there are security dimensions, there are other social dimensions to it actually. On that note, one question I wanted to ask both of you is that what are the capabilities from a leader's, a manager's point that they need to pick up to manage a hybrid workforce? Anjali, you want to go first?
Absolutely, Prashant, I can go. I think one of the roles in the organization that is, very quickly transforming is that of a manager's, right? I think the kind of responsibility that lies on their shoulder now vis-a-vis probably was earlier is definitely changing, and I think it's a humongous responsibility, especially managing the flexible needs of your workforce and yet ensuring that the business results are delivered. I think is one thing that I keep hearing from the managers, that that's quite challenging. And over and above that, we are now asking that you have to show empathy, you have to have an inclusive mindset as a leader, and you, in some cases where diversity is high, you have to also be an ally as a manager, right? So I think these are some things which they never experienced before. These were not the ask that organizations had, and I think this way it is also very important to look at what sort of capabilities are we building and how are we helping them develop through this phase. And I think as organizations we also have to show empathy to these managers because they are picking up these skills as they are moving forward. So I think that's one thing I definitely notice, and I think these will become the competencies of the future as you look at workplace. Like I look at dividing workplace into two parts, one where managers are managing machines and the other where the managers are managing people, and there are very different capabilities that we are expecting in both places. And for a people manager it's extremely complex at this moment. So I think that's how I see and how I see the evolution. A lot of work, but I think as organizations we also have to gear up to support and enable them in this journey as we move forward.
You're on mute, Prashant.
So Srinivas, your thoughts on capabilities needed in managers and leaders to manage the hybrid workforce?
Yeah, I think Anjali struck on the first word, which was there on my mind too, empathy. I think being in the shoes of the workforce, the employee is paramount. I think understanding the context from that person's point of view, and and then taking a decision on what's right for him or her, and aligned with the organization's intentions and goals. I think that's become, of course, a difficult moment for a lot of mid-level managers. For me, it's easier to say, okay, go ahead and do this. But then when the deliverables are there, when the goals are there, then we have to hit their quarterly milestones. And think there is a bit of balancing act that we force the mid managers to do. However, I think being sensitive about the employees' needs. There's one thing that's actually kind of cropped up because of this is one thing I keep telling my managers is that the employees' family and their situation is as much a part of what we need to be aware of, as much as we used to know only about the employee earlier, right? So what their family situation is. Do they have a small child? Do they have a need for that? Do they actually have support mechanisms, etc., etc.? I think more awareness about the situation, the family situation, the support system that the employee has become an important part of knowing your employee, the KYE that you're talking about, and then taking a decision on what's right, which is I think I call it the win-win situation. So arriving at the win-win situation for both the organization as well as the employee, is the right way to actually decide what's best. And there is no single broad brush answer I think I can give here. It is very, very contextual to the organization, to the location where they are, the location where the employees are, and the kind of issues that that organization as well as the employee is facing at that point in time. So it is complex, like Anjali said.
Sure. Thanks. I think both the answers really summed up. Neha, would you, from a NASSCOM point of view, how do you look at this hybrid working? What can an organization like NASSCOM do to help organizations navigate this?
Sure. So I think, Prashant, what we have been doing, and we have been lobbying with the government to help organization get certain regulations in place. There were BPM organizations; they were facing a lot of challenges when there was a sudden shift towards hybrid, and a lot of regulations were not in favor of all of this. Recently, there was an SEZ regulation that came in, which allowed people to work from home previously, which was not the case. And, companies were facing a lot of challenge. And just to add to the point that we were just discussing in terms of first line managers, what can they do? I think everybody just rightly pointed out, that uh, building one-on-one connect with the team members and, setting clear expectations is I think the most important parameter today when you're working hybrid, because that is where, you start losing out because you're not meeting people on a regular basis. So considering all of that, in our report also we have kind of highlighted that, there is a need for a mentorship role of managers, which now needs to shift from community of practice, because as young employees, they prefer learning from peers. So, it has to go a little broader. So managers have to build in that kind of a culture where in the hybrid setting, they are able to come together, work with peers, however it is possible. There has to be engagement, which has to be on the all social platforms. So what in our research also we saw that, there's an increased need to involve a lot of social platforms. And especially on the Gen Z perspective, if you look at, these people are the ones who have been actually learning and doing college online. So these are the folks who are more accustomed to how things are happening online. And they are more, they are more faster in terms of newer technologies, training, everything, they're fast to grasp everything online because they have now got accustomed to it. So with the kind of fresher hiring we have seen the last 2 years, I think it's important for organizations to use technology as much as they can, use social platforms and incorporate that in their everyday working. So that's very important. And as NASSCOM, we have been putting across this point, and with our report, we have given some best practices to organizations to follow, so that, the hybrid model, which for us, we are saying that it's not binary, it's not, either or. It depends on your job roles, your requirement, whatever it is. So it could be, 100% remote for certain set of employees because they really don't need to collaborate. Also, there are certain functions like that. But there could be certain functions where, there has to be a fixed schedule for, once a week, twice a week, come and collaborate. Versus certain roles which actually needs, I think a lot of leadership I've heard across the IT sector, they're going very regularly to office because they personally feel they need to collaborate on a everyday basis. So for them, it is more of a need. So it is not binary. It has to be worked according to the job clusters. And again, on the lower level, we need to really see what employees need. And I think a lot of mushrooming of tier 2 offices is a result of what employees are asking companies. Because somebody who was in Delhi, and I think to your point, somebody was mentioning it, we are living in a one-room setup. So the same person, if he moves to the hometown, I think that problem maybe to a certain extent is solved. Somebody who can afford a one room in, say, a Delhi NCR can definitely afford a bigger house in a Jaipur. So I think these are smaller considerations, but I think these have become very important, and people have realized that, if they're working out from a place like Jaipur, their cost of living goes down, they're closer to their families, and they're able to give, maybe better time, more productive while they're working on the job. So I think these are the nuances which are becoming important. And as NASSCOM, we are making sure we lobby with the government and get those best practices to all the organizations.
I did see
Fantastic. Yeah.
one of the successes possibly. I saw the report about the government allowing 50% work from home for SEZ employees, right? That was yesterday.
Yeah, that was yesterday. Yeah.
That was a good win, I think, for NASSCOM.
Yeah, good, great. I'd just like to. We just got about 7 minutes left. For me, I'm just looking at everything and just putting out the four dimensions which actually can enable hybrid working, according to me, and I'll call it FAIR. Okay, and FAIR, F stands for flexibility, and this is to me extremely important for the leadership of an organization to be flexible in their mindset, actually, because then solutions could come. The second aspect is alignment, especially when you have a hybrid working, aligning the organization, aligning people to the larger purpose becomes extremely important. And like they say, it's better to set the compass, not the clock. And so alignment becomes very important. The third dimension is how do you integrate the people who are working in office? Some of them are working at home, working from somewhere, working from anywhere. How do we integrate this entire organization structure? Will there be structural changes because of this? Okay. Will the typical hierarchical structure that we have in organizations undergo a change? If so, what will be that kind of structure that will enable that? So that's the third dimension of integration. And when we do this, any policy, any process that we bring in, we should ask two questions. One, does it help the employee? Does it help the customer? These are two. And the last is, I think we need to constantly measure the result or the outcome, which actually in an organization context, in a particular organization context, in the customer that they're serving, is it really helping productivity? Is it helping the organization meet its purpose or strategy? So these are the four dimensions which I say that will be important as we move on as far as hybrid working is concerned. I will, request Anjali and Srinivas for the last comments, for the closing comments. Anjali, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prashant, and thank you for summarizing our conversation well. I think my only closing remarks over here is that the future is hybrid. And as I said in the beginning, that it's about how do organizations and employees come meet midway to ensure that it works in the best interest of both, right? Both the employer and the employee. And I think if that is something as an organization we begin to work, and employees also kind of continue to work in that direction, and especially from an employee perspective, I think it's about being relevant, making learning an agenda. I think if these are the things they keep on top of their agendas, we will see that there is a place where we see this working. But needless to say, it's a very challenging environment, right? It needs quite a lot of relentless effort to make it work at any point in time. And I think it's day one for us, all of us in this space, and how we continue to be very perseverant over here is what is going to give us the right price, I would say. So that's my closing remark from my end. Over to you, Srinivas.
Yeah, thanks, Anjali. I think this been. I think I didn't realize we spent 1 hour already, almost, and I think it's like we I think kind of it was a fair summation, Prashant. So fair was a very good acronym. I think I'll remember that. And I think all the 4 points that you mentioned are key. While looking at it from a management perspective, I think getting results, integrating the team together, aligning them to the goals, and being flexible in their mindset, I think is are 4 real key pillars. I think that you pointed out. And I think we in a different way. I think we are all saying the same thing in the sense that the win-win that we need to achieve along with the employee and the organization is a must. And I think that is happening already, at least for sure in the ITES world. It is happening already. And I think the biggest beneficiaries of this, we are also seeing the boom that is happening in the startup ecosystem, right? So without having to establish a huge infrastructure, I think we are seeing startups doing well. And part of the reason is that the ability to be flexible in terms of their mindsets and the hybrid working environment they are able to offer off the straight away off the bat is possibly the big reason for that huge change in the way the workforce itself has started looking at this model. So I think I also agree the future is that the hybrid model is there to stay. In what ratio, ratio would it actually be between work from home versus office is a very contextual thing. It will be determined by each and every organization and the path they have set for themselves. Thanks for this opportunity. I think, and also want to compliment both the reports. I think I saw very quickly at Neha's report. I'll download it and read it fully. And the Randstad, I think the report has been done well. Possibly I'll have more insights as I reread it again later this weekend.
Thank you, Srinivas. Thank you, Anjali, and it's been fantastic talking to all of you about this trend. And Neha, over to you, or back to you, Neha.
Thanks, Prashant. Thanks, Srinivasa, and thanks, Anjali. It was a wonderful session, and I think the fair point is something that we'll all carry away from the discussion today, Prashant. So I think thank you for that. So I think that I would like to thank again everybody for that very insightful and wonderful discussion. And that's it from this edition of Tech Talks. Stay tuned for more insightful discussion happening in the Indian tech industry with NASSCOM Insights YouTube channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. Till then, it's goodbye from everyone here at NASSCOM Insights. And thank you everyone for joining in today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Bye.